Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien.
This is a difficult one.
Hello guys.
Hi everyone.
I am Waldemar.
And I'm Weronika.
Yeah, and this is a very special video. This channel is not very popular, I think. I mean, it's pretty popular. It's 780,000 subscribers. But this video has only 350,000 views. But I saw this video a while ago. I don't know who this guy is, but this was a good video. He talks in a very interesting manner. And I thought this video would be interesting for Weronika, because I'm not as much of a book guy as she is.
I am a book guy.
Yeah. I've read some books in my life, but not as many as I would like to read.
No, I like books.
And lately I just cannot find time to read as I was reading when I was younger. I hope it will change somehow. But yeah, I've seen this video and Weronika hasn't. And as far as I know, she read most of those books. Not all of them, definitely. I've read 5 from all those books.
But you heard of all of them, or
not all of them? I heard of some of them, but I've seen movies based on those books.
Yeah, that's good enough.
But I don't know all those titles, and especially some titles I might know in Polish, but I don't know the original titles. This book about the wind on the hills.
Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, Wind on the Hills.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much.
Yeah, let's begin. Pretty interesting
On these
video.
bonus videos, we do something to torture me. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's something I said. Maybe it's a strain of masochism I don't know about. But today, we're going to do something different. The internet has gathered 23 works of literature that the internet thinks are the best pieces of literature ever. Now, I'm different than the internet because I've read a lot of literature. So they're going to show me these books, these 23 books, and I will rank them. They are ranked on tier rankings of S, which stands for spectacular or superb, or I have no idea. But then it's A, B, C, D, F. There's no E.
No E.
This is so confusing. We need some artificial intelligence in here. Or I can rank it I didn't read, which maybe I will if they're, politically correct or anything like that. This video is brought to you by Genucel. Order yours right now and get the Genucel jawline treatment for a more contoured, defined jawline. Pride and Prejudice. Author Jane Austen. Definitely S, one of the great novels ever written by one of the greatest novelists, the only female novelist in the top 10 of...
Maybe I will give you the keyboard closer. Maybe you will pause whenever there is a book and then you can say if you read it and what do you think? I think it would make more sense.
So, about this one, while you're doing the redecoration of the desk, I read Pride and Prejudice. I wouldn't say it's the best novel by her, but...
By her?
Yeah. But I know it's the most classic one, so I understand why, and I would rate it as well. But if that was the only one by Jane that I could choose, but yeah. Okay, let's go.
I haven't read.
Of novelists. She actually virtually invented the novel, taking a kind of entertainment for ladies and turning it into art, and Pride and Prejudice is one of her greatest works. So S. 1984, author George Orwell. I would make that an A. Is that the second one? I would say that's an A.
For me, it's an S.
One of the greatest.
Yeah, I think it depends really what you're trying to grade, because literally wise.
Yeah, maybe it's not so great literally wise,
Yeah.
but just the message. It's one of those books that so relevant so many years later, and they will be relevant, and they will be mentioned in pop culture, in culture.
Yeah, it's iconic, and you can have criticism for it, for the way that it shows it as well. It's very direct, sometimes maybe even too direct, but I think it needed to be like that. So yeah,
Its influence on everything basically.
Yeah, of course. Everything, the culture,
even on the language.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's why I agree with him. It can't be S, because it could have been also really well written. And then
Okay. That's how you see it. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Greatest political novels ever written. It is incredibly insightful about the Soviet Union. That's what it's about. It is about leftism. Those are the villains. But it is such a good novel, a great novel, that even so, some of the tropes like Big Brother can be applied to the right and the left equally. And it is one of the great understandings of the authoritarian mind. I rank it below S because it's not a great novel.
It's not about leftism. It was about Soviet Union and about communism, but it's not about leftism.
And this guy screams a little bit, but I'm gonna not.
And that you just can't put it down, but it is a wonderful novel and incredibly insightful. Don Quixote, Miguel de Cervantes.
I've read parts of it. I've not read the whole of it, which I would really like to, in a translation, of course. But yeah, and then there's always this problem with this list. I will try not to go on a tangent too much, but then there's like the best list and the most iconic, the best books and the most iconic books, because it's an older book, so maybe there was a lot written after it, so it's hard to compare. But it is a good book from what I've read, but it's definitely really, really iconic when it comes to the influence on the culture and the language. Like even in Polish, we have like phrases that come from Don Quixote. So it's like to fight the
windmills.
The werewolves, yeah. I don't know if you say it in English. Windmills, yeah. Yeah, well, not whirlwinds. Whirlwinds is like the
Windmills.
In the water, yeah. And you read it?
No.
I think parts of it are in our textbooks.
Yeah, I remember some parts from textbook in school, but that's all.
N.S. That is one of the classic novels. That's a novel, kind of the first novel almost. It's written before there were novels, and it is just absolutely amazing. It's
funny
not
too.
an easy read necessarily, but it is amazing. The latest, there's a new translation of it that is great, and it creates the modern world like Shakespeare does. The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, I would give that an A. These are good books.
Pause. Pause every time when he says that it will be easier. I've read Great Gatsby and I hated it. Like, I'm sorry, but maybe it was because I haven't read it in original. You have read it in original?
Yes.
I haven't read it in original. I read it in Polish, and like it was so boring.
I prefer Tender's Night. I don't like this book that much. I understand for the structure of the novel, for the novel making, it is really good. It did some new things. Like for the story, it's really well crafted, and for like character analysis of and looking at rich people, your desires and how you imagine them and how they are in the end. That's executed very well, but it's just a little bit boring. And for how short it is, it really should not have been that boring. That's my personal opinion. I know it's an amazing classic, so it doesn't really matter what I think, but it wasn't for me. I would do it like a B.
You don't need to apologize. You don't need to apologize. They know it's just your opinion.
Yes, I would do it give it a C, I think.
I'm surprised the internet did so well. One of the greatest of American novels, very small, a novella, but a wonderful, wonderful romance, a wonderful look at the upper classes and sort of something about the inherent class system of America, which we don't like to talk about, and just beautifully, beautifully written. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
I haven't read it.
You haven't read it?
No, I've just... No, wait. Sorry. Oh my god, I had a very interesting... No, I have read this one. Sorry.
You have read this? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, we watched the movie.
Yeah, no, we watched the movie.
a while ago.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing book.
Yeah, I just seen the movie. The movie is beautiful.
I think I read it in English when I didn't know English extremely well yet, and I found it okay to read. It wasn't very easy, but it was an easy enough read, and great story, great everything.
But I found her story fascinating. The story of Harper Lee. Like, she was a friend of the Truman Capote, and she was already a writer, and she was like, okay, this writing thing seems not too hard. Let's try it. And like, Pulitzer from the start, one of the greatest books of all time, and then she was like, okay.
Whatever, that's enough.
That's enough.
Let's not spoil it, right? Well, when you told me that the other day, I was just thinking how frustrated Truman must have been as well. Because he was like so super into writing, he was trying to do all these experimental things, and his entire life was just like, let's write something that's important, let's write something that... And he did, like in Cold Blood, it has changed a bit, but it's not comparable. So I'm sorry to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine. It's just...
Put this a B. I think it is a really wonderful novel. It's a great piece of Americana. You know, everything gets overgraded if you give anything less than a top grade. People think you're dissing it. I'm not. It's a really good novel.
Yeah, B
it's
works.
a good read. I don't think it's up there with the great classics like Pride and Prejudice and 1984, but it's definitely really good, and it's strong, and everybody who reads it loves it, and I think it's lovable. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky again.
Yeah, I really like this book.
I'm reading it right now because I should have read it in high school, but I didn't.
Yeah, it was compulsory reading for you?
Yeah.
Okay. We were in different systems.
So I know what this book is about, and we were talking about it in high school, but I'm reading it right now, slowly.
Yeah, but without spoilers for Waldemar.
I know everything. I know everything
okay.
that happens.
Well, exceptional book, exceptional study of like the human mind and the guilt, and especially in that period of Russia as well. Exceptional characters, and it's like funny. It's funny to the point that it's like slapstick in some scenes, but it's also, you know, so touches you so deeply, and that there are such long dialogues that you can take so much from, but it's still fun to read about all of these people. And I think it's a nice introduction to Dostoevsky as well, because if you look at his other book, like Brothers Karamazov, a lot of people say that this is his best book, but it is a book that is a commitment. It's also very interesting, but it's a book that's talking about God and about morality and about, you know, and everything, and the characters making similar points at different people. It's more of a philosophical book, still very good, but maybe better, I don't know, but this one is for sure more accessible. So I would give it an S. But he's not gonna give it an S, I think. There's some contempt around people who really like literary fiction for Dostoevsky, that he's not that elevated. So I think he's not gonna give it an S. I think he's gonna give it an A, but I'm not sure.
An S,
Oh,
one of
give it
the
an S.
absolute
Okay.
classic novels of all time. Any list of great novels that is limited to, say, 10 is going to have Crime and Punishment on it. It is the most important novel in my life. It is the novel that turned me against postmodern philosophy, moral relativism, materialism. You cannot read it and not believe that there is both evil and good. It is the book that ultimately, over 30 years, led me to Christianity. I love it. It's absolutely terrific.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that also it's an amazing book, because I heard so many people say that it's the most important book in their lives when I watch people talk about books. And he's the first person who said it also led him to Christianity, because all of the other people were atheists. And they also said that it kind of cemented that. So what an exceptional book. Of course, Dostoevsky had his route in mind, but still.
Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I will put this at an A. It's my daughter's favorite novel, so that almost gives it an S. It is a great novel.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to pause because I just paused. Yes, I would give it the same. I really like this book. I read it and I listened to an audiobook, and it's really, really, really good.
I'm saying an A is still a great, great novel. I'm just putting only the very, very best in top S. I don't think it's a brilliantly written novel. It's written in a very Gothic style. It has some kind of quirks to it, but it's the essential Gothic novel. It is the essential Gothic novel, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story, and as romantic and loving as it possibly be. It's essentially Beauty and the Beast turned into a novel. It's great. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
Yes, it's one of my favorite books of all time. And I'll stop pausing so much because I think this video is getting too long, so it'll be a bit shorter from now on. But I just have to say this book is amazing. And it's amazing for the time that it came in and how mature of an outlook it has on love. It's not even about love, to be honest. It's often advertised as a love story, but it is just about generational trauma and about how horrible you can be and how horrible of a person you can be to another person. It's the main character, Heathcliff, is probably the least likable character in the whole world of literature. And it's also very fresh. I remember reading it in English when my English I was not so good in English yet. And I was also able to read it, though slowly. But if you read it in your modern tongue, it's very entertaining. It's also funny. There's a lot of sarcasm, and it's such a good book. Yeah. And beautiful as well.
Bronte. Some people are Jane Eyre people, some people are Wuthering Heights people. I am a Jane Eyre person, but Wuthering Heights is a great and complex novel. So what did I give Jane Eyre? I gave it an A. I'll give this an A as well. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy.
I've have not read this one. I really want to read it. Both War and Peace and Anna Karenina, and I know I am very behind.
Yeah, and I haven't read this one. And when I'm not talking anything, then you can assume that I haven't read this.
It is, again, one of the top 10 novels of all time. You know, people don't read Tolstoy because his books are so long. I think Anna Karenina is 800, 900 pages. War and Peace is closer to 1,200 pages. Both are incredibly readable, like reading comic books. They're so entertaining. I don't even know which one to pick as being more entertaining. War and Peace has some philosophy in it that slows it down, but Anna Karenina, great from beginning to end. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. You can read all about it in my book, Truth and Beauty.
Remember.
A.
You read Frankenstein?
Yes, I have. We read it in my literature class at school. It's a classic. I don't know. It wasn't that gripping for me. I don't remember much from it, which I think maybe I read it at the wrong time, but it wasn't groundbreaking for me how good it was. But just because of the impact on the culture, you cannot say that it's not excellent. And also, didn't he say at the beginning that Jane Austen was the only woman in the list? I thought I heard that.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
know.
Because it is Harper Lee. It's her.
Yeah. You read this?
It is a wonderful book. I would give it a B. Put it up there with the really top-notch novels. It's not one of the greatest of great novels, but it is a top-notch novel, an essential piece of reading about what it means to create life without women and the hostility toward women we see today, which I think Mary Shelley saw coming. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov.
Yeah. I think. I don't know. It's one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read, and considering, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that English was not his first language, it's even more astounding. I mean, at least he wasn't from. I don't know how early he moved to an English-speaking country, but yeah, exceptional. For what it talks about, of course, it's like everyone. I mean, most people probably know what it is about. So if we're thinking about influence, then that as well. But the literary value is just.
I've read recently that Joseph Conrad was also not an English speaker, and he learned English much later in his life.
Yeah.
And then he started reading in English.
Yeah, I heard he had some Polish roots, but I don't know about that.
He was Polish.
Yeah.
He was not. He didn't have Polish roots. He was Polish.
I told you he was Polish, and you said he wasn't Polish.
I wasn't sure, but
Then I thought, and I this is how it works, and I adjusted it in my head because you said he wasn't. Then I thought, okay, maybe then he just has roots. So we have a collective.
I checked it after this conversation.
Okay, so he was Polish. Okay, so you haven't heard he was Polish. You heard it from me, but then I changed my mind. Let's go on.
Basically, it really is, and it's a beautifully written novel. I will give that also a B. It's close to an A novel. It's a great novel, but there is something about it that's off-putting even to me.
Exactly.
What?
But it is terrific, and the language is beautiful, and I think it's a really good novel. This one's a tough one for me. Moby Dick by Herman.
I'm reading it right now.
You just bought it, right?
Mm-hmm. I did a lot of research. I've got the Norton edition. If you're into books, then probably that's the best one. But I have nothing to say yet about it because I'm just making my way through it.
Melville. People love Moby Dick. And I don't want to diss it, but I will. I give it a B. It is a great 130-page novel written over 500 pages. I just, the thing that everybody feels makes it great is the maundering. Herman Melville was deeply affected by Nathaniel Hawthorne, who was a transcendentalist, and he puts all this transcendental philosophy into the story of hunting the whale. The whale stuff is great. The adventure stuff is great. Some of the philosophizing is great, but I've read it 3 times, trying to get the goodness of it, why everybody loves it so much. I'm giving it a B anyway. I just don't think it's as good as people say it is. Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien.
This is a difficult one.
Let's go. For your defense, I started reading Lord of the Rings when I was a kid because I read a lot of books when I was a small kid, and I swallowed every book that I put my hands on, and then it was Lord of the Rings, and it stopped.
Yeah, but in your defense, Lord of the Rings is a little bit complex language-wise for a young person.
Yeah, I was 11, I think.
I think you were too young anyway.
It was too much for me.
And now, I have
But I love Hobbit. Hobbit is
Yeah,
great.
I love Hobbit. Hobbit's perfect. Hobbit is, I'm sorry, but I think Hobbit is Tolkien at his best. And I have kind of similar feelings as, this is going to offend a lot of people, as he just said about Moby Dick. Like, it's a really great one story that's told over 3 books. And if we just cut out all the parts when they are walking, and then they realize that they are hungry, and then they realize they have to forage for food, and then they eat, and then they sleep, and then they keep walking, it would have been an amazing story. But it's just, I haven't read it. I listened to an audiobook. And I really want to try reading it because I think maybe if I am more into, maybe this is what it needs. So I will give it a try. Just because, everyone loves this book so much. But I listened to the audiobook and I have 1 hour left. And I could not be bothered to listen to it. So this is what I think about Lord of the Rings. I cannot. And but I cannot.
We will be cancelled.
But yeah, I was supposed to speak quicker, but just to say, it is exceptional, the world building, and it has not been done before, and everything since Lord of the Rings in the fantasy world, and often in sci-fi even, it has been a ripoff. And that's true. And he made the entire language, and the characters are amazing. I recognize that. It's still boring to me. But I would still rate it very high, because
just for the world building, just for
and
what
for the
he
impact.
invented.
Yeah, indeed.
We'll give this an A. I'm just about to reread Lord of the Rings. I found it wordy. I like the movies better, enjoyed the movies better, but I'm going to reread it and see if maybe I missed something. It's just so much, but you got to give it cred. It started a genre. Every trope in the genre of fantasy comes from Tolkien. It is an insanely brilliant piece of social engineering. The things he created are great. I think it could be cut in half, but it's still, people love it. It's people's favorite novels. So what did I say? A? We'll put it on A.
I think it's like with the Wright brothers. You could not say that their plane was shitty.
Yeah, but it was the first
because
plane.
Now we have so much better planes.
Oh no, but I think Tolkien would be very sad about that, because he really also put a lot of effort
No,
into his
but
writing.
it's not the same. It's not the same, of course. And
it would have been that plane, but like very beautifully painted, unnecessarily painted.
Lord of the Rings is still very good today,
Yeah.
but
I know what you mean. When you're inventing something, you should be held to a slightly lower standard. You can't be compared to people who built on your work. That their work is better.
Yeah.
For the next one that's on the screen, I haven't read it, like we said before.
Peace, Leo Tolstoy, also an S. He gets 2 in the he's one of the top. There aren't that many novelists at Leo Tolstoy's level. War and Peace also belongs in the top. I know it's 1,200 pages, but every page of it is great. Beloved by Toni Morrison.
I've not read this one, and I keep because sometimes I watch videos like what's my favorite book, and so many people give this book as the best one, and a lot of people say it's the best novel in American literature. And they say it's either Blood Meridian or this one or sometimes Great Gatsby. So I really want to read it, but I also don't really know what it's about. So I hope he doesn't say, because it's a very unique opportunity for me to not know what a classic really is about. Oh. So I hope he doesn't say too much, but we'll see. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if for now you are agreeing with him, with his taste, because if you do, then maybe you should start this Leo Tolstoy guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I really want to. I really want to, and I'm agreeing with him. And I think he said kind of similar things that I believe. Like we have similar thoughts about this. I don't think we would have a great conversation, just judging him by his character and some of the comments. But yeah, I agree with most of what he said. And I'm seeing that he puts this book at C. So now I'm a bit less excited to read it.
She's overrated. She's overrated because she's a black woman. I'm sorry. That's why she's overrated.
Is it because I'm black?
Yeah. It's good, but it's not that great. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens.
Yeah, it's an amazing book for me, for what it did and like how it, created the novels as well and the influence later. It's not a particularly astoundingly written book. It was, he was also publishing in magazines for like every week there another installment of the story would come out. I don't know if this one, probably not. It was very much what you would now call like a pop culture book at the time. So it's not like it's a very elevated book, but the story is really touching, and you haven't read it, right?
No, but I want to. because my favorite writer is Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and he often said that his two favorite writers are Dostoevsky and Dickens.
Yeah.
And that he was inspired a lot by them. So that's one of the reasons why I'm now reading Dostoevsky, and after I would like to give a try to Dickens.
I think you can for sure see a lot of like the same imagery and like that Dickens uses in Zafón. Like how they speak about cities and buildings and they bring them to life. So I think there's a lot of that. So I think you would like it. A lot of people say you should like start with Oliver Twist because it's kind of about Dickens, but it's a bit the book for children, but not really. But I'm not sure which one of his books is the best. It's very hard to choose.
Okay.
Dickens is a Tolstoyan level author. This is not one of his greatest books, so I'll give it an A. But everything he writes is beautifully, one of the greatest prose stylists who ever lived. Great story.
Oh, see, that's the first one we don't maybe 100% agree on. I'm not super a fan of his prose. It's good, but I didn't think it's that good. One of the most beautifully written, like he says.
Storyteller, amazing characters, Great Expectations is, from anyone else, it would be the best novel ever. It's just, he's written better. The Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger, I haven't read that in a long, long time.
You've read it, right?
Yeah, I read it. It was good, but compared to the other books that I have read on this list, like the 84 and the Great Gatsby, I would say Great Gatsby is a C, 1984 is an S. I didn't like it that much. I mean, it was good, but it's not that great. It didn't leave like any impact on my life or anything like that.
I think it's also very much an American book. So I think if you read it in a Polish translation as a Polish kid, then maybe it doesn't hit as hard. It didn't hit me that hard either. I really want to read it again because I hear what most people say is that you should read it when you're young and then you read it when you're older. And they are two completely different books. That you treat the main characters like you relate to to him usually when you're young, and then you read it as an adult and you're just like, it's a completely different book to you then.
Yeah, as an adult, I think you are thinking all the time, get this guy some help.
Yeah. Indeed.
I'm going to give it a B. It's very, very popular. People love it. Maybe it's better than I remembered. I remember reading it thinking it was good, but not great. But like I said, it's been a long time.
No, I was laughing because you were laughing.
No, he said that everyone loves it, and he shot John Lennon, and the guy that killed John Lennon had a copy of The Catcher in the Rye with him when he shot him. So I guess John Lennon might be one person that is not a big fan.
Now we have Count of Monte Cristo.
I read Count. I mean, I haven't finished, but I started to read this also too young. I think I was all 13. I think.
Oh yeah.
And
possibly.
I liked it, but I don't know. I started reading something else, and I put it on the shelf and never came back.
I haven't read it. I heard that it's like an amazing adventure book, but that is also not much more than that. I don't know. Let's see what he says.
Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas.
Dumbass.
The most entertaining novel ever written. 1,400 pages. I am an extremely slow reader. I read 400 pages of it in one day. I just could not put it down. It is as entertaining as anything. I'm giving it an S just because it's the most entertaining novel ever written.
I read The Three Musketeers, and it was very entertaining book. And I read it in the primary school, and still I was very fascinated by the book.
I've not read it. I got it as a gift and it had a very ugly cover and I never picked it up. Then we have The
Odyssey by Homer.
So I've read excerpts. I was a bit of a pretentious kid, so I tried to read it when I was like 14 or 15 and I did not get through the whole of it for some reason. But yeah, of course,
I know parts of this book, of course. But
the great story and then everything is built on that story. So, I mean, what's the discussion even? There's no fair comparison to books like that.
I heard somewhere that this book is written like Pantadeusz, like the most famous Polish book. I mean, the most important. It's rhyming all the time.
Yeah, indeed. It's not a poem. It's what is a long poem called?
Epos?
Yeah, that's what it's called in Polish, but I have no idea what it's called in English. But yeah, it is a long poem. And it's not
So
just that it rhymes.
I think it must be different to read it not in original language.
Oh yeah, it's like a big feat translating it, and I think every couple of years the new translation comes out because people try to capture like the rhythm of the original, and it's not so easy. So there are different things because it's not just that it rhymes; it's just that the rhythm is the flow of the story.
Yeah, there is the same amount of syllables also in the every line.
Yeah, and then I think
13, right?
I think so. I'm not sure about it. That's in the book. I think so. Yeah, I think there's the same amount of syllables, but it's not just that. It's the sound of the words as well, because it was written at the time that you had spoken stories, like by a fire or something, and it preserves that. So that's why it's so impactful as well.
Yes, it's foundational. There is no literature without Homer.
I am too smart. I am too smart.
Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
That's quick. I've not read this one, and I feel like I've heard of it once or twice, but not much.
I haven't heard of it.
I'm surprised.
I just want to say something before you start playing again. Sorry. At the public announcement, now this was my turn for editing the videos, and I just want to say that this video will be edited by Weronika because I will not touch this clip with the 40 pauses. That was
you told me to pause all the time, and I can see you like growing antsy next to me that you'll have to edit it. But yeah, well. I will edit it. I would have edited it anyway.
Some good book. I give it a B. It's an interesting book, an interesting look at America in its time, especially from a black author. I think it's good. It's a top-notch American novel. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark.
I've not read this one, and I'm very ashamed of that.
I've read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer because it's how do you say it before? Like a compulsory book in school?
Compulsory reading.
Yeah, so it was a compulsory reading in my school, Tom Sawyer, and in every Polish school, we have to read Tom Sawyer. So I read Tom Sawyer and I loved it. Like as a child, it was one of the best books I have read. I would give it an S. But I heard later in my life that all the Americans are all about Huckleberry Finn, and that this is the most important book. So I need to read it too because Huckleberry Finn is a character in the Tom Sawyer book.
Yeah, it's loud as well right now because there was like this very loud book that came out that is from the perspective of the slave, and it's getting it was always famous, but it's getting another life, I suppose. But I really want to read it.
Wayne, I'm going to give it wow. It is the foundational American novel. It's got flaws. I'll give it an A. It's if A's are still great novels, I will give it an A. It is not one of the greatest novels ever written, but it may be the greatest American novel ever written. But it is terrific. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn gets an A. The Iliad by Homer, it's an S.
Same thing, like the other ones you added, I think.
No, I haven't read either. So
neither. But I remember in our textbooks there were quite long excerpts.
But that's what I read. But I don't think it's enough to...
if anyone is watching still, and I don't think that's many people, so if you're there, I'm asking you, and if you're American, do you also have textbooks with excerpts from books? Because I spoke to, I have a friend who's American, and I forgot to ask her about this, but I always mention, this wasn't my compulsory reading, but I read a little bit of it in the textbook, and from what I gathered, it's not something you guys do, because we have compulsory reading, like books you take home and then you read in the evening, but we also have textbooks with things about particular eras and everything.
For example, the Bible. We don't read the whole Bible, but we have the excerpts from the Bible because it's an important book for every language.
Yeah, so you have that in between learning about different styles, eras, other things.
Mainly about eras, I think.
Mainly about eras,
It's constructed in the era periods.
Exactly. So you have like ancient times, and then you would have bits and pieces of the Odyssey and the Iliad. So I wonder if you guys have that as well. And if not, then what do you do in the English language? What do you do in the English language classes? Is it just grammar? I don't think it is just grammar. I don't know. Because I remember from movies like, no, that's a British movie. I don't know. Let me know.
I mean, come on. There's no thought without Homer. Homer is, the foundational author. We all stand on him in the Bible. Ulysses by James Joyce.
This is a failure of mine. I really want to read this, and I read half of it, I think. Then you got me the nice Penguin 12-pound edition, which I do not recommend. They are horrible, but they look nice. And I'm trying to read it, it's really, really difficult. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I think you can do with the English language. It's exceptional, perfect, very hyped as well, if you're a little bit pretentious. But it's really, really, really difficult. It's funny as well, if you can understand it enough to understand the humor. And the editing is horrible. The editing of the dialogues, I understand the aesthetic choice, but I cannot. I showed you the book, remember? Yeah, it's edited like the Eastern style with the dashes instead of quotation marks. And sometimes the dashes are missing and you have no idea who's speaking. So it's, But yeah, it's... Well, from what I've read, it was exceptional.
You know, I'm going to put that at the S level. It's a very difficult novel, a modern novel. It's the end of novel writing. The art forms always reach the end of their pinnacle by having a hyper-intellectual piece that is not for everybody. That's Ulysses, and yet it is that one great novel. Everything written like it is below it, so I'm going to give it an S.
And a fun fact about Ulysses, it has a lot of impact on culture, but like quarks in quantum mechanics are named from... a name from this book. Yeah. So that's a real fact.
That was an excellent list. I was really expecting it to be really less than that. I don't have a favorite novel because I've read all of them. But I will say there's no question that Crime and Punishment is the novel that affected me most in life. To me, the worst writer who ever lived is Gertrude Stein. There are many, many, many bad writers, but Gertrude Stein is the worst writer. I don't think she ever wrote a novel, but it doesn't matter. Every word she wrote, some of her periods are bad. The spaces between her words are bad. She looks bad. Everything.
I mean, it sounds very familiar. Like I must have heard about her, but I don't know. We need to Google it.
Is bad. That was actually pretty interesting. I was surprised at how many of those books were among the actual greatest books, greatest novels ever written. So good for the internet. You're not as stupid as you look. If you thought that,
I think this man builds his following a little bit on being controversial. That's the feeling I get. Okay, I'm not gonna make this any longer because I'll have to edit it, apparently, even though you told me to pause after every book. Thanks for watching, guys. Waldemar is now checking who Gertrude Stein is. She's an American novelist. I do not know any of these titles. So why do I know her name? I have no idea. But I liked his list as well. And it was really fun to me, so I hope if anyone's watching still, then it was fun to you.
Yeah, if you are still here, then you must subscribe for her. It was huge. She was the star of this show.
It was really nice. I wish we could do more of these, but I don't think it's gonna be super popular. But it was super fun for me.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah,
it was very nice. Yeah. Thank you guys for staying with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a different video than the usual ones, but well.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.